Long before GPS, satellite phones, emergency beacons, and survival kits, men were disappearing into some of the harshest wilderness in North America with little more than a rifle, a knife, a blanket, and whatever they could carry on their backs. They were known as mountain men. They trapped animals, crossed frozen rivers, slept beneath rock overhangs, and spent months far beyond the reach of civilization. But surviving out there wasn't just about strength. It was about knowing what to do when everything went wrong. And some of the most useful lessons were never written in books. They were passed from one trapper to another around campfires, learned through painful mistakes, and sometimes kept secret because a mistake in the wilderness could mean death. Some of these old techniques would be considered unsafe today. Others could violate modern hunting, fishing, fire, or public land regulations depending on where you are. And some simply disappeared because modern equipment made them unnecessary. These are 20 forgotten survival tricks associated with the mountain man era, and number 1 may be the most important lesson of all. 20. Never waste a fire. To a modern camper, a fire can be something relaxing. To a mountain man, it could be the difference between waking up alive and never waking up at all. A fire provided warmth, light, cooked food, dried clothing, and protection from the cold. But experienced woodsmen understood something beginners often didn't. Starting a fire was only half the battle. Keeping it alive was more important. They learned to build fires using different sizes of wood. Small, dry material created the initial flame. Medium pieces kept it burning. Large logs provided long-lasting heat. Instead of constantly rebuilding the fire, an experienced woodsman could arrange fuel so that the fire would continue burning for hours. But there was another trick. They learned where to collect wood. A fallen tree might look wet and useless after rain, but dead branches above the ground could remain surprisingly dry. The lesson was simple. Don't just look for wood. Look for dry wood. 19. Learn the land before you move. Mountain men didn't have Google Maps. They didn't have a compass app. And they couldn't simply call someone if they got lost. Instead, they developed an intimate understanding of the landscape. They watched ridgelines. They studied rivers. They remembered unusual rocks, trees, and mountain shapes. A particular ridge could become a landmark. A creek could become a natural road. A valley could tell them which direction they were traveling. The wilderness itself became their map. And this created one of the most important survival rules: don't travel blindly. Before moving, stop and observe. Look at the terrain. Look at the sun. Look at the direction of water. Look at the slope of the land. The best woodsmen didn't simply walk through the wilderness. They read it. 18. Water first, food second. One of the biggest misconceptions about wilderness survival is that finding food should be the first priority. Mountain men knew better. Water came first. A person could survive a long time without food. Dehydration was a much more immediate threat. Experienced travelers, therefore, learned to pay attention to streams, springs, snow, and natural depressions in the terrain. But there was a catch. Water that looks clean isn't necessarily safe. Mountain men didn't understand modern microbiology the way we do today, but they understood something through experience. Bad water could make a person extremely sick, and being sick hundreds of miles from civilization was a disaster. Today, the safest approach is to treat questionable water by boiling or using a proper filtration or purification method. The old lesson still survives. Find water early. Don't wait until you're desperate. 17. Use the wind to your advantage. Wind was more than an annoyance. It could reveal weather changes. expose a camp, increase heat loss, and make fire management much harder. Experienced woodsmen paid attention to wind direction before choosing a campsite. They looked for natural barriers, trees, rock formations, hillsides, anything that could reduce exposure. They also learned to recognize how wind behaved around mountains. A valley could be calm while a nearby ridge was being hammered by strong winds. Choosing the wrong campsite could turn a normal night into a dangerous one. The trick wasn't fighting the wilderness. It was using the landscape to protect yourself from it. 16. Never sleep directly on the ground. This sounds simple, but it was one of the most important cold weather lessons. The ground can pull heat away from the body surprisingly quickly. Mountain men learn to create a layer between themselves and the earth. Leaves, grass, bark, branches, blankets, anything that created insulation could help. The goal wasn't luxury. It was insulation. A thick layer beneath the body could sometimes matter more than adding another layer on top. That's why experienced woodsmen treated the ground as part of the cold weather problem. You weren't just trying to stay warm. You were trying to stop the earth from stealing your heat. 15. Smoke was a signal. Today, people think of smoke primarily as something coming from a campfire. But historically, smoke could communicate over long distances. A controlled fire could create a visible signal. In open country, smoke might be seen from far away. This could potentially help travelers locate a camp or signal others. But smoke could also reveal your position. That meant a wilderness traveler had to understand when visibility was useful and when it was dangerous. The lesson was surprisingly modern. Your environment can communicate for you. You just have to understand the signals.